All right, let's dive back into Great Expectations, and we're hitting a really crucial point in the story. We're looking at chapters 45 through 47 of Book 3. And trust me, this is where everything Pip thought he knew just starts to completely unravel, and the net begins to close in. So, it all kicks off with this single, terrifying note left for Pip. Can you even imagine? No name, no explanation, just these two words that would send an absolute chill down your spine. This is the moment the danger becomes real, and it drops us right into the thick of it. And so, in chapter 45, that little warning shot makes one thing terrifyingly clear. The hunter has finally arrived in London. The threat that Provis has been running from his whole life is no longer just a story. It's here. But the big question is, who sent the warning? Well, it turns out it's from our old friend Wemmick. And to get why he's being so mysterious, you have to understand that he's basically two different people. At his office in Little Britain, he's cold, he's all business, obsessed with portable property. But then when he goes home to Walworth, he's this warm, wonderful, completely human guy. This life and death warning, it's coming from the real Wemmick, the Walworth Wemmick, who has to send it in code because his professional side wants absolutely nothing to do with it. And this is the terrifying secret behind that note. This is what Wemmick overheard at Newgate Prison. Compeyson, remember him, Provis's arch-nemesis, the other convict from the marshes, he knows Provis is back. And worse, he's already had Pip's apartment watched. This isn't some distant threat anymore. It's here, now.
But thank goodness for Herbert Pocket, right? He is a true friend. The second Wemmick gets the word out, he tells Herbert, and boom, Herbert is on it. No questions asked. He immediately finds a new place to hide Provis. And get this, it's a room right by the river, in the very same building where his fiancée Clara lives. Talk about high stakes.
But, of course, it can't be that simple. There's always a complication. And in this case, it's Clara. Turns out she's not exactly Pip's biggest fan. And you gotta love the irony here. Pip spent all this time and money trying to become a gentleman, and all it's gotten him is a reputation for being a bad influence who throws his money around. So the very thing he thought would make him better has made him a problem. So that brings us to chapter 46. What do you do when the walls are closing in? Well, you come up with a desperate plan. You make a high-stakes gamble to get Protavis out of the country, and the river is their only way out. You know the first rule when you're on the run, right? You get a new name. So say goodbye to Provis and hello to Mr. Campbell. He's just a regular guy, supposedly, hiding in plain sight in a boarding house. Okay, so let's walk through this plan because it's actually pretty clever. Step 1, done. Provis is relocated. Now for step 2, the cover story. Pip and Herbert are going to start rowing on the river every single day. The idea is to make it look totally normal, just a hobby. That way, when they actually make a run for it, nobody will think twice. Then, they just wait for the signal from Mr. Campbell. He'll pull down his window blind, and that's their cue to grab him and row like mad for a steamer ship heading out of the country. So, you might be asking yourself, why all this sneaking around? Why not just go to the police? Well, this quote right here gets to the heart of it. For a guy like Provis, a returned convict, the so-called justice system is the enemy. The law won't save him. It'll see him hanged. So if they want any kind of real justice, or frankly just to survive, they have to become outlaws themselves. But here's the thing. Having a plan doesn't just magically make the fear go away. Pip is an absolute wreck. He is tormented, jumping every little sound, convinced he's being followed. You know that feeling when the hairs on the back of your neck stand up? Well, that's Pip's life now, 24/7. And this is where it gets really scary. Chapter 47. It turns out Pip isn't just being paranoid, not even close. He goes looking for a distraction, and what he finds is the absolute confirmation of his worst fears. Now, we need to remember where Pip's head is at right now. The guy is broke. I mean, seriously drowning in debt. But even so, he refuses to touch a single penny of Provis's money. He feels like a total fraud, taking money from a man whose whole existence he's secretly been so ashamed of. It's this messy mix of integrity and, yeah, a little bit of pride. So what do you do when you're stressed out of your mind? You look for an escape. For Pip, that means going to the theater to see his old acquaintance, Mr. Wopsle, in some ridiculous play. He just wants to forget about the danger, the debt, all of it, just for a couple of hours. But that escape doesn't last. After the show, Wopsle pulls him aside, and he looks like he's seen a ghost. And then he says it, the words that just freeze Pip's blood. He tells Pip he saw a familiar face in the audience, that other convict. And he wasn't just in the theater, he was sitting right there, in the dark, directly behind Pip's shoulder, the entire time. And just like that, everything clicks into place with horrifying clarity. This isn't paranoia, this is real. He's not just being watched from a distance, he's being actively stalked. He's prey. The danger wasn't lurking across the city, it was literally breathing down his neck. He is being hunted. So this is the grim new reality. The ghost that's been haunting him now has a face, and it's always, always there. That brilliant escape plan? Who knows if it's already blown? Suddenly, every street corner, every public space is a potential trap. Their only defense is secrecy. But how in the world do you hide when your enemy is practically your own shadow? And that's really the question these chapters leave us wrestling with, isn't it? Pip and Herbert have a plan, sure, but they're up against a master criminal who is always one step behind them, or maybe even one step ahead. So you have to ask, when the hunter is always watching, how can you possibly get away? All right, let's dive right into two absolutely game-changing chapters of Great Expectations. Today, we're breaking down chapters 48 and 49 from Book 3, where a shocking identity is revealed and a long-awaited story ends in fire and forgiveness. It's going to be a wild ride. So think about this for a second. That very question is just hanging in the air for Pip as he steps back into the world of his guardian, the formidable lawyer Mr. Jaggers. Our story really kicks off in chapter 48 with what seems like just a random dinner invitation. But trust me, it's going to unravel a secret that completely changes the game for Pip. So, picture this. Pip has been laying low for a week, trying to keep his benefactor Magwitch hidden, when he bumps into Mr. Jaggers. The lawyer invites him over for dinner, and this is, well, it's not just a meal. This is the meeting that's going to crack open a secret Pip never, ever saw coming. At dinner, Jaggers is his usual cheerful self. Casually mentioning that Estella's new husband, the brute Drummle, will probably just beat her to control her. It is a shockingly cynical thing to say, but it gives us this perfect insight into how Jaggers sees the world. He expects the absolute worst from people, and honestly, that's what makes him such a terrifyingly good lawyer. As this lovely conversation is happening, Pip's focus starts to drift. He's watching Molly, the quiet, almost invisible housekeeper. He's looking at her hands, her eyes, and there's just something about her, a flash of recognition he can't quite put his finger on. And this is it. This is the moment where the gears start turning in Pip's head as he watches Molly's restless hands and her incredibly intense eyes. A connection that has been bothering him for years finally starts to bubble up to the surface. And then, bam, it hits him. Just this stunning moment of absolute clarity. Pip is suddenly certain of this unbelievable truth. This quiet, mysterious housekeeper is Estella's mother. The resemblance is undeniable. It was just hidden by the huge gap in their social standing. So, as you can imagine, Pip is completely shaken by this. He needs answers, and he needs them now. After dinner, he manages to get Jaggers' clerk, Wemmick, to walk home with him because he is absolutely determined to find out the truth about Molly's dark and violent past. And Wemmick tells him the whole story. Turns out Molly was at the center of this notorious murder trial. She was accused of strangling another woman in a jealous rage, and all the evidence pointed right at her. But Jaggers? Wow. In this incredible piece of legal theater, he dressed her up to look small and fragile, completely manipulated her appearance, and got her acquitted. It was the case that made his entire career. And this just reveals this really disturbing pattern, doesn't it? Just like with the villain Compeyson, who got a lighter sentence for being a gentleman, Molly's fate wasn't decided by facts, but by how she looked. It makes you wonder, is Jaggers' whole career just built on twisting the truth? And with that chilling thought, chapter 48 wraps up. Okay, so now we're heading into chapter 49. Pip is armed with this bombshell of a secret about Estella's mother, and he goes straight to Satis' house to confront Miss Havisham. But he finds a completely different woman. She's not vengeful anymore. Instead, she's just consumed by this surprising, overwhelming remorse. And to prove that she's, in her own words, not all stone, Miss Havisham makes a pretty shocking offer. She wants to give this huge sum of money, £900, to secretly fund the career of Pip's best friend, Herbert. It's her first, quiet step toward making things right. Then she just completely breaks down, literally kneeling at Pip's feet, overcome with guilt. She confesses that watching Pip's real, selfless love for Estella finally made her see what she'd done, how she had twisted this innocent little girl into a cold, heartless weapon for her own revenge. So Miss Havisham basically confesses to everything, how she systematically, piece by piece, destroyed Estella's ability to love. But, and this is a big but, when Pip asks her where Estella actually came from, she says she has no idea. All she knows is that Mr. Jaggers brought her the child years and years ago. Pip forgives her, and he gets ready to leave. But as he's walking away, this awful, haunting image from his childhood pops into his head, a vision of Miss Havisham hanging from a beam. And it pulls him back inside the house for one last tragic encounter. He walks back into the room just in time to see something truly horrifying. A spark from the fireplace jumps onto her old, tattered wedding dress, and in an instant, the very symbol of her bitterness and her pain just erupts in flames. And Pip doesn't hesitate for a second. He just reacts. He throws his own coat over her, tackles her to the floor, and uses his own body to put out the fire, burning his own arms and hands badly in the process. And the book says they struggle like desperate enemies. But this isn't just a fight against a fire. It's this incredibly symbolic battle to finally free Miss Havisham from the prison of her own past, a prison she's been trapped in for decades. The fire burns that dress right off her, the symbol of all her pain. But she survives. And as she's lying there, injured and delirious, it's like all the vengeance has been burned away too. All that's left is this desperate, repeated plea for the forgiveness that Pip has already given her. So the fire seems to have cleansed Miss Havisham of her past, but a brand new mystery has literally risen from the ashes. We now know who Estella's mother is, but if Mr. Jaggers was the one who delivered the child, then who is Estella's father? And what other secrets is that man hiding? All right, let's jump right into one of the most dramatic and revealing sections in all of Great Expectations. Today, we're tearing into chapters 50 through 52 of Book 3, where everything Pip thought he knew gets turned completely upside down. So let's start with this, because this question is at the absolute core of these chapters. Pip is about to find out that the world he's built for himself, his whole identity, is basically resting on a foundation of lies and secrets. The whole thing is about to come crashing down. And chapter 50 is where the first massive domino falls. We're talking about a secret that's been buried for more than 20 years, and it's about to connect everyone in this story in ways Pip could never, ever have dreamed of. Okay, so it all kicks off when Herbert shares this haunting story he heard from Provis, Pip's secret benefactor. It's this incredibly dark tale about his past, about a fiercely jealous wife who was tried for murder and who, in a terrifying rage, even threatened to kill their own little girl. Right, so you can just imagine what's going through Pip's head as he hears all this. A jealous woman, tried by his own lawyer, Mr. Jaggers, a lost child, and the villainous Compeyson hovering in the background, using it all for blackmail. All these little details start snapping together like puzzle pieces, and trust me, it's not a pretty picture. And then, bam, the shocking truth hits him. The violent woman from the story, that's Molly, Mr. Jaggers' housekeeper. And the lost little girl? No way. It's Estella. The woman he loves, who he thought was from high society, is the daughter of 2 convicts, his benefactor, Provis, and a convicted murderer. Wow. But here's the thing, and this is so crucial. You'd think finding this out would change everything for Pip, right? That he'd be repulsed or suddenly see her as lesser. But it doesn't. In that moment of pure shock, all that stuff about social class just melts away. He doesn't see the child of criminals, he just sees Estella. Okay, so let's move into chapter 51. Pip is armed with this bombshell of a secret, and what's he gonna do? He goes straight to the one man who knows the whole truth, the cold, calculating, and notoriously unshakable lawyer, Mr. Jaggers. This is going to be good. And you have to give Pip credit here. He's smart about it. He doesn't just storm in. He lays out what he knows. He appeals to Jaggers' professional pride. And then, and this is a truly genius move, he brings Jaggers' clerk, Wemmick, into it. He calls on Wemmick's kinder, gentler side to help break through that legal armor. And you know what? It actually works. Well, kinda. Jaggers agrees to talk, but he's still a lawyer through and through. So he says, fine, we'll discuss it, but only as a hypothetical case. He's protecting himself, making it crystal clear. I admit nothing. Classic Jaggers. So he tells the entire story without ever using a single name. It's all, let us suppose there was a woman, and let us suppose there was a child. He explains how he arranged for Miss Havisham to adopt Estella, framing it as this great moral act to save a little girl from a horrible life. And then, just when Pip thinks he's in control, Jaggers completely flips the script on him. He puts it right back on Pip. Okay, you know the truth now. So tell me, who actually benefits if you go shouting it from the rooftops? He argues it would just bring ruin and shame to everyone. And this raises such a fascinating moral question, doesn't it? What's more important, cold hard honesty or a kind of deeper, compassionate integrity? Jaggers is basically arguing that sometimes the most humane and generous thing you can do is keep a secret. It's a really deep point. All right, so now we're into chapter 52. The past has been dealt with, sort of, and now the focus snaps right back to the present, and things get really, really dangerous. It's all about one thing now, getting Provis out of London before it's too late. So, we've got a plan, and it feels like something out of a spy thriller. Wemmick gives them the signal, they get the passports, and the escape is set for Wednesday. They're going to row Provis out on the river to a steamer ship. You can feel the tension just ratcheting up, can't you? But come on, this is a Dickens novel. It is never going to be that easy. Just when everything is set, Pip gets this anonymous and frankly terrifying letter. It summons him back to the marshes and has this one chilling line. It mentions his uncle Provis. Somebody knows. And what does Pip do? Oh, Pip. He decides he has to go. And he makes a terrible choice. He lies to Herbert about where he's going and heads out completely alone. He's walking right into a trap, cutting himself off from the very people who could help him. As he's waiting, Pip's mind wanders, and he has this amazing moment of clarity. He thinks about the huge difference between someone like Uncle Pumblechook, the loudmouth who always took credit for Pip's fortune, and Joe, good, loyal, selfless Joe. Pip finally understands what real character looks like. So there you have it. In just these 3 chapters, Dickens has brilliantly woven together the past, the present, and a very dangerous future. Every secret is out in the open, and all of our characters are now on an unavoidable collision course. And really, this is the whole point. Pip's journey is no longer about his great expectations of being a gentleman. It's now about navigating the messy, complicated realities of morality and what it means to be a truly good person. And that's the cliffhanger we're left on. Pip, all alone, walking into an obvious trap on the dark, lonely marshes. What on earth is going to happen to him? It just leaves you absolutely desperate to find out what comes next. All right, today we are diving into a single, absolutely pivotal chapter. A chapter where years of resentment just explode into this violent life-or-death showdown. We're talking revenge, a last-minute rescue, and a really tough choice. Let's get right into it. So I want you to just picture this. What if your oldest, bitterest enemy, an enemy you didn't even really know you had, has been quietly plotting your end for years? You get this weird anonymous note, right? It asks you to meet someone in this totally desolate, forgotten place. You go thinking, maybe you're there to help somebody. But what if the only reason you were called there was so you could be murdered? Well, that's exactly the situation our guy Pip walks right into. The stage is set with this classic lore, a mysterious, unsigned note promising some important information. But the tone? It's just chillingly ominous. I mean, it's the perfect bait, and the trap is just about to snap shut. So Pip heads out, all alone. He walks deep into the same marshes he grew up in, heading for this old, abandoned lime kiln. I mean, just think about that setting for a second. A place of decay, of finality. The place itself is practically screaming danger. It really hammers home just how isolated and totally vulnerable he is right now. And yep, just as you'd guess, it's a trap. A noose suddenly gets thrown over him, he's tied up tight, and this voice from the shadows reveals his attacker. And who is it? It's Orlick. You remember him, the brutish journeyman from his old life back at the forge, a guy Pip hasn't seen in years, and now he's back, just filled with this murderous rage. Okay, so now we get to the real heart of it. This isn't just some random attack. Oh no, this is a villain's confession. For the very first time, Pip, and us, right along with him, are about to find out the true, monstrous depth of Orlick's hatred. Just listen to how he says that. I'm a-going to have your life. It's so raw, so brutish. Orlick's goal is terrifyingly simple and final. He doesn't just want to hurt Pip. He wants to literally erase him from existence. This isn't some complex threat from a criminal mastermind. It's a gloating promise from a monster, and the stakes could not possibly be higher. And this is where Orlick just lays it all out, connecting all these loose threads from the past. He confesses to everything. That horrific attack on Mrs. Joe? Yeah, that was him, and he did it just to get back at Pip. Losing his job at Miss Havisham's? He blames Pip for that. His failure with Biddy? Yep, Pip's fault too. And here's the kicker. We find out he's now working for the big bad Compeyson. And he was the spy lurking outside Pip's place in London. Suddenly, all these old mysteries just snap into this terrifying focus. It reveals this whole web of resentment that's been closing in on Pip for years. This reveals something really important about how this story looks at hatred. I mean, think about it. You've got Miss Havisham's resentment, which was this cold, calculated psychological torture, right? The cruelty of the upper class, using Estella as her weapon. Orlick's hatred is the total opposite. It's raw physical violence from a man who feels completely powerless. It's crude, it's direct, and it's expressed with the blunt force of a hammer. Both are born from feeling wronged, but one's like a poison of the mind, and the other is a poison of the fist. And Orlick's plan? It's just as horrifying as his motives. He's not just going to kill Pip, no, he plans to throw his body into the fiery lime kiln, a furnace that's literally designed to break down stone into dust. It is such a meticulously cruel plan, designed to make sure Pip just utterly disappears from the world, no trace left behind. So the confession is over, the murder weapon is in his hand. We have arrived at the absolute climax of this chapter. Is this really it for Pip? Is this the end? I mean, you can just picture it, can't you? Orlick, drunk on his own power and years of hatred, raising the very tool of his old trade, a heavy stone hammer, ready to bring it down on a helpless, bound Pip. This is that heart-stopping moment right before the final fatal blow. And Pip, believing he's about to die, his mind just racing with thoughts of everyone he's going to leave behind, he lets out one last desperate scream. It's this primal cry for help into the empty marshland, the very last sound he ever expects to make. But then, in this absolutely stunning reversal, that scream is answered. A group of figures just bursts into the hut, tackling Orlick to the ground. In all the chaos, Orlick actually manages to escape into the night, but Pip is saved. And his saviors? His closest friends, Herbert and Startup, guided by the most unlikely person, the local Trabs boy. So you're probably wondering, how in the world did they know where to find him? Well, it turns out it was this brilliant moment that really shows the power of friendship. See, back in London, Herbert found that ominous note that Pip had accidentally left behind. The tone was just so disturbing that he and Startop immediately followed Pip down to the village. Once they got there, they hired Trabs boy to lead them out to the kiln. And they arrived literally at the exact moment they heard Pip scream. Talk about cutting it close. This whole event really becomes the ultimate definition of true friendship in this story. While Orlick is driven by pure malice and resentment, Herbert and Startup act out of nothing but loyalty and compassion. They literally traveled across the country based on a bad feeling, putting themselves in danger to save their friend. It's such a pivotal moment for Pip, reinforcing the incredible value of genuine human connection over all those shallow ambitions he used to chase. But the story doesn't just end there with the rescue. In the aftermath, the characters are faced with a pretty serious question. What do we do now? What does justice even look like after an ordeal like this? And what's so fascinating here is that we see three totally different ideas of justice come into play. On one hand, you have Herbert, who wants to go straight to the magistrate. He's looking for formal, societal justice through the legal system. Then there's Pip. Humbled, changed by his near-death experience, he tries to serve a more personal kind of justice by apologizing to Trabs boy for his past snobbery. But Trabs boy, he just ignores the apology, takes the money, and moves on. Which kind of shows that sometimes our attempts at justice just fall flat. They don't always land the way we want them to. So ultimately, they're faced with this impossible choice. Herbert wants to hunt down Orlick, but Pip knows he has this urgent life-or-death deadline on Wednesday. He has to help his benefactor, Provis, escape England. They realize they can't do both. So they make the call to let Orlick go for now, prioritizing their loyalty to Provis. And that's a choice the old, selfish Pip probably never would have made. And that's the big question this chapter leaves us hanging with, isn't it? They chose the safety of one friend over getting justice for an attack on another. By choosing loyalty over retribution, did they do the right thing, or did they just let a monster slip back out into the world? It's a tough moral dilemma with no easy answer.